A neighbour who murdered a mother and her 2 young daughters by pouring petrol into their letterbox and setting their home alight has been sentenced to life with a minimum term of 44 years in prison. So it's a very, very terrible situation. On November 20th, 2022, the scumbag in question, Jamie Barrow, 31 years of age, the neighbour, got petrol from his motorbike, poured that petrol into the letterbox. So in England, this happened in Clifton, Nottingham in England. Most front doors of a home will have a letterbox. This scumbag poured petrol into the letterbox and then set the home alight. Why would he do this? What grievance did he have with the family concerned? Well, it was a dispute over rubbish. I don't know the exact ins and outs, but I don't know, perhaps Jamie Barrow, the psychopathic arsonist murderer, believed that the family, the mother, Fatoumatta Hydara, deserved vengeance for leaving some rubbish out in the wrong place, something along those lines. So the neighbour, Jamie Barrow, torched the flat belonging to Fatoumatta Hydara, the mother, and her 2 daughters, Fatima Drame, 3 years of age, and her other daughter, Naima Drama, 1 year of age. Again, this happened November 20th, 2022 in Clifton, Nottingham, England. Of course, full condolences to the family concerned, friends and the community, but in particular the father of the 2 children, Abubakar Drame, the father, and he last saw his girls alive when he kissed them both on the forehead whilst they were asleep. He hugged and kissed his wife, Fatoumatta Hydara, and then he left for a trip to the United States, I'm guessing a work trip. The next time he was to see his daughters when they were lifeless. He had to rush back to the United Kingdom to identify them both. I presume he had to identify his wife Fatoumatta Hydara as well. How devastating must that be? You leave your family for a few days and you're informed that there was a fire at the home, at the flat, leading to the death of your wife and your 2 daughters, 3 years of age and 1 year of age. That must rock him to the absolute core. So full condolences for the father, Abubakar Drame. I wish him all the best. I presume he's going to have a cloud over his mindset for the rest of his life, but he does seem to be coping very stoically. In the court during sentencing, the father said the following: "Thank you for your time. First, I want to start by giving you a brief timeline of my last moment with Fatima and the girls. When I left at the end of my trip in the early morning of September the 7th, 2022, it didn't occur to me that I would not see them alive again. The kids were asleep. I leaned over the baby crib that was right next to the wall and I kissed Naimia Drame on the forehead. I crawled on the bed and kissed Fatima Drame on the forehead. Fatoumata was standing at the door and in a very emotional voice said, 'A taxi is waiting.' We hugged, we kissed and exchanged 'I love you.' I walked down the stairs and closed that door. Everything was normal, just as we had done countless times." So the father, Mr. Drame, has said that he feels that he failed his daughters. Here's a further quote from the father. "Two little angels, their lifeless bodies laying next to each other. I held their whole hands. I wished I could switch with them. Only Allah knows why. I have to accept and prepare for the next chapter of my life. All I can say is I am sorry." So those are the words of a heartbroken man, very respectful, very stoic, sorrowful for the loss of his wife and his two little angels. I think it's unfortunate, natural, but unfortunate that the father and I guess parents in this type of tragic situation do blame themselves to some degree. I think it's awful that they do that. I mean, I presume it's a natural psychological reaction, but it's awful. The father did nothing wrong. He was minding his own business. As far as we understand, being a good father, being a good husband, doing seemingly what he'd done before, which is go on a business trip or work trip or something along those lines. There's nothing wrong with that. He has done nothing wrong. Yet he has this sorrowfulness. He feels that he let his family down and he didn't, and I hope that he's able to accept that at some point, and I hope that he does successfully open a new chapter in his life when he's mentally, emotionally, psychologically prepared to do so. I hope he is able to move on and able to resume a healthy life, share his love and support and goodness with somebody else, perhaps a new family. So I think it's important to realize, which I'm sure everyone does, but these tragedies, these murders, not only affect the victim, but very much affect those around the victims, notably the family, in this case, the husband, the father. and others. There's going to be other family members that are absolutely distraught by the loss of their perhaps sister, perhaps daughter, in regards to the mother, Fatoumatta Hydara, their nieces, their cousins, Fatima and Naima's schoolmates. Well, perhaps they were both too young to be at school. The opportunity for that has been taken away from them. So going back to the actual tragic murder, Jamie Barrow was found guilty at the end of a 3-week trial. He showed no emotion at Nottingham Crown Court as he was sentenced for what was described as a hateful triple murder. Again, he's been sentenced to life in jail, but in England, life does not mean life. In this case, however, there is a lengthy minimum term of 44 years in prison. So I do applaud that. I've covered quite a number of UK murder cases, not thousands of them, but quite a few, and that's probably the highest sentence I've seen. A minimum term of 44 years in prison. So that will mean that he will be at least 75 years of age should he be released from prison. So I do applaud that. I don't think it's ideal. I think life should mean life. I'd rather the death penalty personally. I know not everyone does. A lot of people prefer to imprison these scumbags so that the inmates and the guards have plenty of opportunity to remind the likes of Jamie Barrow as to the harm they inflicted on their victims and again their victims' families. So again, we're told that the fire started because Jamie Barrow poured petrol from his motorbike through Fatoumatta Hydara's front door. He set the petrol alight with tissue paper. He used a clean and fresh spray bottle to decant the petrol, which he specifically chose because it's got a slim neck which would fit through a letterbox. So all of this shows premeditation. So seemingly he had been drinking earlier that evening. He'd got into a drunken state, didn't quite know what he was doing, but that's not enough to act as an excuse. He planned this. He went to the trouble of decanting petrol from his motorbike. He poured it into a cleaning bottle specifically so that that cleaning bottle will fit through the letterbox. This was planned. There were multiple stages, multiple, let's say, processes that he needed to do to comply with in order to be able to enact his homicidal arsonist evil. So once the fire took hold, what did he do? He stood there and watched for several minutes at least. He watched the flames grow in strength and in height. That's all he did. He just watched. There's CCTV footage of him smirking whilst he watched. If we're going to attack somebody for smirking, let's attack this guy, Jamie Barrow, for smirking whilst he watched the flat burn after he poured petrol through the letterbox, after he set it alight using tissues, knowing that the 3 victims were in the home. So he stood and watched. Then he walked away. Then he came back, spoke with police officers. What was he doing when he was speaking with police officers? That's right, he was grinning. He was happy at his work. He was happy that his plan had come to fruition. What a sick C-U-N-T. We're told that the 2 girls, 3-year-old Fatima Dramé and 1-year-old Namia Dramé, were pronounced dead shortly after the fire started at around 3 a.m. The mother, Fatoumatta Hydara, died 2 days later. We're told that all 3 died as a result of smoke inhalation after the fire. And again, we're told that the fire started, Jamie Barrow decided to do this horrendous act because he believed that the family, perhaps the mother, Fatoumatta Hydara, had left bags of rubbish next to his block of flats. He wasn't happy with the bags of rubbish being left in an alleyway next to his block of flats. Let's presume for a moment that he had a genuine grievance. Let's presume for a moment that indeed there were bags of rubbish left in an alleyway next to his block of flats, and let's presume for a moment that that did happen due to the wrongdoing, let's say, of the family in question, of perhaps the mother, perhaps the father. Let's say that is the case. So effing what? Get over it. Call the police, call the council, deal with it. Get into an argument with them, shout at them, oh, you guys are doing the wrong thing by leaving rubbish somewhere you're not supposed to leave rubbish. Do that. Don't take out murderous vengeance. During sentencing, the judge told Jamie Barrow that his actions, his evil act, had been devastating to the father in particular. The judge reminds Jamie Barrow that he knew the 3 victims were at home asleep. He knew that they had no chance to survive. Jamie Barrow heard the fire alarm go off. He did nothing. Jamie Barrow heard the mother, Fatoumatta Hydara, scream, and still Jamie Barrow did nothing. He just stood there and smirked. We know that. It was caught on CCTV. What kind of sick CUNT has the ability ability to stand and watch, knowing that a mother and her 2 children are being burnt alive or being killed. The 3 of them died due to smoke inhalation. A very sick individual indeed. We don't know anything about his previous mental history, whether or not he suffers mental illness. That would be good information to have. We're not told. We're not told if he was given a psychological examination. That would be good info to have. I don't know why we're not told that. I presume no such psychological evaluation occurred. That's my presumption. Could be wrong. I don't know why the articles wouldn't inform us of that. It seems to be poignant, important, interesting information for us to be told, readers to be told, but we're not told. We're not told of his criminal history prior to this. Has he been a normal law-abiding person and then all of a sudden he's gone from no criminal history to being a triple murderer? Possible. I would have thought unlikely. I would have thought that it would be hugely difficult for somebody to be a normal human being, contributing member of society one day, and then even after a few beers becoming a homicidal maniac. That seems a bit of a stretch. That concerns me, to be honest. I would like clarification. It would be good to know what his criminal history is or was. Some YouTubers are smart enough to get that information. I'm not one of them, but it does concern me if a normal person can go from, again, I'm repeating myself, but be a normal contributory member of society to becoming a triple murderer overnight over such a trivial issue. What does that tell us about humanity? How fragile we are? Does it tell us that evil is within all of us? Maybe it does. But for me, and I'm sure you, if you're not tapping into that evil, whatever, let's say, intrusive thoughts that you may experience over the course of your life, you know, we all get angry, we all get moments of vengeful fantasy. Some of us are going to indulge in that mentally more than others. And I think that's the key word there. If you indulge in these things, if you perhaps enact petty crimes, petty acts of violence, or relatively petty acts of violence, then everything becomes normalized. But it would take a hell of a lot, I would have thought, to go from not being violent to being a triple murderer overnight, I would have thought. But anyway, I've kind of gone on a bit of a ramble there, so I'll wrap things up at this point. If you appreciate the coverage, please do like, comment, subscribe, share the video as you see fit. I have been a little bit slow. I prepared this video more than a week ago, but it is difficult for me to find the time, the energy, and the mind space to make these videos. I will try to keep it up. Probably going to try to do 2 or 3 videos a day. Not sure if I'll do that. I've been making missing persons videos very regularly every single day, so I'm on top of that. But the news reports, which I prefer making, they do take longer and they do take more energy, and it's harder for me to do them for that reason. But in any case, thank you for listening. Don't listen to too many of my videos, please. They're too depressing. If you're able to say a prayer for Fatoumatta Hydara, the mother, and her 2 daughters, Fatima Drame and Naima Drame, 3 years of age and 1 year of age, and also, of course, their father and Fatoumatta's husband, Abu Bakr Drame. His life has been completely destroyed, and let's just hope he can rebuild. So thank you for your time. Take care.